Timmy Chang is now entering year 3 as the head coach of his alma mater in the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And the Rainbow Warriors, well, his first season in 2022 just didn't go so well. However, last season, there was some good improvement. A breakout star at quarterback and lots of returning production lead this program to believe they are going to be contenders for a bowl game here in 2024. The schedule sets up well for them at points, but can Hawaii get through the tough Mountain West Conference and break back into the postseason? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and, of course, welcome you to prediction season. Guys, we have, I think, 20 of these left. I said that in my last video, but I'm pretty positive that, including this video, there are 20 teams left. And I just want to thank you so much for watching not only this video, but for any other of my prediction videos that you may have happened to watch. It really does mean a lot to me. Please continue to help support the channel any way you can, whether that's by liking, commenting, sharing, whether that's by watching this video and any of my other ones, or if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you gotta hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when I post all of my videos during the college football season as well. Guys, let's go ahead, break on into the Rainbow Warriors, but before we do that, I gotta tell you how we're gonna talk about them. First, we'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, then we'll move on to the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Rainbow Warrior football schedule, which has dropped down from 13 games to only 12 games this season. Yes, Hawaii usually does play a 13-game schedule. This year, they're playing a 12-game schedule, and we'll go ahead and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. All right, a couple more things before we do start, because right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right down there, right below the team's logo, I have went ahead and put the team's coaching staff. Guys, let's waste no more time. Let's dive on in and talk about the Rainbow Warriors here in 2024. And like I said, there's a lot of returning talent here on this team. They don't lose a whole lot. They only lose 5 offensive players that were notable enough to me to include here. Yes, there are some other pieces that leave through the portal, and I think even some more depth guys that graduate, but these are the notable names to me that did here leave this team. We'll start out with the quarterback position, and that is Joey Yellen. He did not throw or attempt to pass last season, but I believe in 2022, yeah, he threw 87 passes while completing around 46% of them. Overall, not a fantastic career while he was in Hawaii, but when he played, did provide some pretty solid moments. He's going to go leave through the transfer portal, a destination to be named. Don't know where he's going yet, but he is in the portal looking for a new home to play some college ball. So who returns in this quarterback room? How about a guy that really broke out last season? 3,542 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. You want to get that last number I said a little bit lower, but at 63.2% completion percentage. It's Braden Shager, and he's going to be leading this offense once again here in 2024. You go ahead and try to take a look at what he did rushing the football. Well, 103 carries, 54 yards, did have 2 rushing touchdowns. He was sacked 39 times last season. Yeah, sack yardage is affected into that number there as well. So overall, for Braden Shager, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a guy that's going to sit in the pocket, look to throw the ball deep, and it's why this offense averaged 276 passing yards per game last year. Also on top of they threw the ball more than 200, I should say they threw the ball 200 more times than they rushed the ball last season. But regardless of that, Braden Shager's a really good talent at quarterback. His backup will be Jake Farrell this season. Farrell had 14 yards and 1 interception on 8 passing attempts last season, completed only 3 of them. Obviously, one of those incompletions was an interception, but it is Braden Shager's show. Once again, he'll be leading the offense for the Rainbow Warriors this season. Now, the rush game, again, I just said, struggled for a lot of different ways. One, the offensive line, as you saw with the sack production number, wasn't that great in run protection either. Again, they allowed 39 sacks last year. Again, we'll talk more about the offensive line, but they allowed 39 sacks last year. And, well, the rush game only averaged 3 yards per carry, and it does lose Jordan Johnson, who led the team in yards per carry last season. Was the team's second leading rusher. He only got 34 carries, but made the most of all of them. 198 yards, yet no breaks in the plane of the end zone for Jordan Johnson last season. So, okay, who does come back in this running back room? Well, you do get Landon Sims back. He was your leading rusher. And besides Braden Shager, the team's leading, or I should say, the team's leader in carries last season. He had 255 yards and 1 touchdown last season. And I don't know if I said it already, but Landon Sims was able to get a touchdown last season. Tylen Hines and David Cordero do come back to the running back room as well, while Cam Barfield is a transfer coming into this program to try to give this room some depth. He's over from Boston College. That is a long, long, long journey all the way from the eastern coast of the U.S. to come over to play for Hawaii. Nonetheless, transfer guy you get in there anyway that could provide some depth in this running back room. Wide receiver room, you lose one of your better ones off of last year's team. Jalen Walthall will no longer be playing football. Walthall. My apologies there. I have a media guide up because I know I'm going to be butchering some names here in this video. And again, even though I have the guide up, I apologize for any names that I do inevitably butcher. But Jalen Walthall is going to be gone here off of this team. He is gone through the transfer portal. Last season, 10 catches for 125 yards and a touchdown last season. He was quite a ways down on that wide receiver leaderboard, so you get pretty much everyone else coming back here. Stephen McBride is back. He had over 1,000 yards last year, 1,024 yards on 63 catches and 9 touchdowns, but you get another really, really big part to this offense back, and that is Pofele Ashlock. He had the team leading catches last year with 83 of them. He also had 832 yards and tied McBride for those 9 touchdowns last season. You also get a lot more production back here in this wide receiver room. Wally Nishigaya is coming back, as well as Alex Perry, Nick Senecal, and Jonah Pinoke. All of those guys will be back here in this room and will be leading this wide receiver charge for the Rainbow Warriors this year. Braden Shager liked to pass it around to everyone, and obviously Ashlock and McBride were his favorite targets last year, but you do return a lot of depth in this wide receiver room, as well as while they don't utilize tight ends a whole lot in this pass game, these are some names among the tight end position that kind of can act like a 6th offensive lineman at times. Devon Tawaefa and Oki Salivea. And again, hopefully I'm saying those names right. I'm trying to read the media guide as best as I can here, find the names as quickly as possible. But those two guys, again, not really utilized a whole lot in the pass catching realm, but are still tight ends that are coming back to play for Hawaii this season. Now, off the offensive line, you do lose one notable name through the transfer portal, and that is Josh Atkins. He's going to go find a new home here. I'll tell you where in a second, with the Arizona State Sun Devils this season. So in terms of what you return on this offensive line, well, it looks like this. Kayena DeCambra will be one of the leaders amongst this offensive line crew. He is going to be coming back here to play for this team, as well as guys like Sergio Muasau, Maurice Ta'ala, Luke Felix Fualalo, Zen Sotelo, Arisi Mose, however you pronounce that last name, and James Milo Vale. And hopefully I did pretty well on pronunciations there. I feel like I did, but combination of those 7 guys right there will be your starting offensive line for the Rainbow Warriors in 2024. And overall, when you talk about this offense, look, this offensive line returns a ton of pieces from last year, and I think that's the biggest thing that has to improve. Sure, this is a team that probably isn't going to blister you or amaze you with the amount of rushing yards they get per game, right? We saw it last year. They are a pass-first offense. They throw the ball way more than they run it, and it's going to be led, once again, this offense will, by Braden Shager and what this wide receiver room is able to do. I think they're going to have another phenomenal season, but it's up to the offensive line to protect Braden Shager a little bit more effectively, and yes, you do need the run game to get better, because even though it might not break 120 yards per game, you still need it to break that triple-digit threshold to take some pressure off of Braden Shager and this pass game, and it'll allow the offense to improve here in 2024. You take a look at the defensive side of the ball for the Rainbow Warriors last season, and well, it had its ups and had its downs. And up, well, they allowed under 400 yards per game, but it down, they allowed over 30 points per game. They just weren't that great of a rush defense, and they were not very good at getting the team's opposing offense off the field, allowed over 45% of third down conversions last season. And you do lose a couple really, really phenomenal players off of this defense from last year, including the defensive line. Let's talk about him here right now. Andrew Choi is going to be one of the leaders on the defensive front, gone 36 tackles and 3 sacks. So you'll lose a lot of production from him when he leaves here through this program. Again, here are some other pronunciations that I'm sorry if I butcher, but Jonah Kahaha Y. Welch is going to be leaving off the defensive front. Pretty solid player in his own right last season. And then you're also going to be losing one more name here in John Tiutupu, who will be leaving this defensive front from last season. Trying to find some of their stat lines here. Tui Tupu did add 15 tackles last year, and Kahaha Y. Welch, 24 tackles with 2.5 sacks last season. All 3 of those guys that I just mentioned are gone due to graduation. So, okay, what do you get back on this defensive front? Well, Elijah Robinson is going to be coming back one of the leaders on the defensive line last year, will be so again here in 2024. And taking a look at what he did last year, 24 tackles and 3 sacks for him. Those are some pretty darn good numbers. You'll get his production back, and that is a very, very, very significant get back for this Hawaii Rainbow Warriors offense or defense, my apologies, as well as this guy that I'm about to mention right here, Ezra Evi Malo. Again, hopefully saying that name right, Evi Malo, however you pronounce that name. He is coming back here as well. He had 3.5 sacks last season, so you get that production coming back, which is a huge get back as well for that defense, as well as a couple other names like Tariq Jones, Daniel Williams, and this guy right here, Kuau Pehopa. You will be getting him back into this room as well. Dion Washington and Jamar Sakona are names that enter through the transfer portal, and they will provide some pretty solid minutes to this defensive line room, at least I think, as well. In the linebacker room, you do lose Isaiah Tufanga, however you pronounce that last name. He is going to be gone due to graduation, and he was one of the leaders among this defensive team last season. 79 tackles, 2.5 sacks last season. Really good linebacker that you will lose, as well as Damari Blanks, who didn't have a super big role in the defense last year, but is a notable loss to me. He leaves through the transfer portal. So who all comes back here in this room? Well, you are getting Jalen Smith back, as well as Noah Kama, Nalu Emerson, Logan Taylor, and Jamie Otis. All of those guys will be back here for this linebacking room for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Most notable one of those is obviously Jalen Smith. He's the one listed first. He was a top 3 tackler, 65 tackles, a sack and a half for him last season. Him with along of all the other talent is going to make for a pretty solid linebacking room for the Rainbow Warriors this season. Now, defensive back room. No notable losses out of the safety room, but you do lose a very important piece out of the cornerback room, and that is a guy that by a name of CJ Williams. Now, he didn't get a lot of playing time last year. He only had 2 tackles, but I think could have provided this team a solid role if he got the chance to play. Nonetheless, he is leaving through the transfer portal, so I guess not as significant of a loss as I may have seemed it out to be. Again, only 2 tackles last year. You are going to be returning a lot of your leaders in production in the defensive back room last season. Verdell Edwards is going to be coming back, 37 tackles, led the team with 9 passes defended. That's a huge get back in the cornerback room. Cam Stone will also be coming back, third on the team, I should say, with 6 passes defended last season. Caleb Brown was second on the team with 7 passes defended. I don't know why I said with Cam Stone, but again, he is third. So your top 3 players in passes defended are all coming back. Devin King and JoJo Forrest will also play some solid minutes, while Fabian Ross is a guy getting through the transfer portal, and the returns in the defensive back room don't stop there. Peter Manuma is back. Mekhi Pay, Elijah Palmer, and Justin Sinclair all return to the safety room. And again, while I do recognize that some of these corners can go play safety as well, like JoJo Forrest, Devin King, maybe even the transfer portal piece and Fabian Ross. Who knows where he's going to fit in? But cornerbacks, safeties, they can kind of play both positions for the most part here on this team. Again, I'm just going what they're listed off either on the roster, on 24/7, whatever have you. And kickers are people too, guys. You know we got to show them some love. Matthew Shipley, who did every special teams duty for this team last year, punting, field goal kicking, kickoffs, he did it all. He has gone through the transfer portal. He is going to find himself a brand new home, and I'll tell you where here in just a second. He's going over to the Arkansas Razorbacks, so that's a huge pickup for Pittman's team there, but it is a huge loss for this Rainbow Warriors team. So you do get a punter in Ben Falk back. Lucas Boro is going to come in through the transfer portal. So there's going to be a little bit of a punting battle there to try to decipher who, in fact, is going to end up getting that punting duties this season. But you also do return your place kicker from last year in Kansei Matsuzawa. Hopefully I'm saying that last name right. You do get him back, and that's a big get back, especially when you lose a guy like Matthew Shipley from last season. He should be a pretty solid place kicker for you this year. Although, again, definitely some concerns when you lose a guy of Matthew Shipley's caliber. This is the defense that, again, is just going to have to see improvements in all the things I basically said were not very good last season. That is the points per game realm. You got to cut back. And look, the yards per game overall pretty solid. The secondary, yeah, you could get that number down, but overall it is not too bad. You got to improve that run defense. You got to get off the field at a more effective rate. But other than that, they're returning a lot of good talent, some solid portal pieces that once we figure out their role, I think are going to end up being a pretty solid addition to this Rainbow Warriors defense. So now let's take a look at the schedule for Timmy Chang and company and the Rainbow Warriors. They get 3 bye weeks this year, while everyone else gets 2 because they're one of the few teams to play in week 0, a game that I think they're going to win against the Delaware State Hornets. But I'll flash the green up on the screen here in a minute. I got to tell you what everything else means. Any game at home, like that one against Delaware State, is going to be underlined, and any game on the road is in italics. For those of you that may not know what that is, it is, of course, that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Rainbow Warriors are going to win fairly easily here, while any game in yellow should be a close competitive game, but one I still see the Rainbow Warriors being able to win. Any game in red is a loss, and let's begin by revealing what I already said a minute ago. Hawaii should be able to beat the Delaware State Hornets, a team coming from all the way on the East Coast side to come play in Hawaii. Braden Shager and company will be too lethal of a passing attack. They will be able to get that one down. Now, this one against UCLA is very, very interesting because, yes, UCLA's got a lot of improvements to make on the defensive end, but the offense alone here, with DeAnton Lynn gone, with Chip Kelly gone, with Dante Moore gone, and some really good defensive pieces, UCLA, while they still have a lot of good talent, is just not a team I really like this season. And Braden Shager and company, I think, are going to give UCLA a pretty solid run. However, that being said, I do not see Hawaii beating UCLA. I still think there's a little bit of a talent gap when you compare those two. And even though UCLA entering the Big Ten is not a team I love to get a pretty good record at the end of the day, they are in a pretty tough conference after all. They still got some really solid pieces, could exceed my expectations of them this year, and I think they beat the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors there in week 1. And now you move on to play the Sam Houston Bearcats, a team that had a hard time adjusting to the FBS level last year. And while things could definitely get better for the Bearcats this season, I still think they need a little bit more time here. They are not bringing in a ton of transfers, although they are bringing in some pretty talented ones, such as Jace Bauer, I believe, who's a Central Michigan transfer, going to come over and play quarterback for him. You're getting Jay Ducker to come over and play for that team as well. Pretty solid running back during his time when I believe he was at Northern Illinois, bringing in some good pieces in the defensive room, in the defensive line, in the defensive back room, and returning some pretty good talent. And overall, you're looking for a really experienced defense this year for Sam Houston, but I don't think the additions they made in the secondary are going to be enough. I still see this being a season where the Bearcats struggle, and I think the Rainbow Warriors are going to be able to go on the road here and pick up this win. Again, I think after that first bye week, you get the extra week of preparation, the extra week of game planning. Sam Houston's still trying to adjust to the FBS level, and I think Hawaii going to have a pretty lethal passing attack this year that's going to give any secondary trouble, and it does so against Sam Houston. I think they go on the road, get a pretty big win there, and then they're going to be able to start out 3-1 with a win against UNI. Now, this game is in yellow only because if you're going to want to look for a potential matchup where, yes, an FCS level team can beat an FBS level team, this very well might be one of them. UNI is usually one of the teams in the upper echelon, or at least in the top half of the FCS ranks, and I think they give Hawaii a little bit more trouble than what Delaware State gave them, but nonetheless should pick up 2 wins against 2 FCS programs like Delaware State and Northern Iowa to begin the college football season at 3-1, and then you have to dive on into Mountain West Conference play, which I got to be honest with you, I think is going to be pretty brutal to the Rainbow Warriors this year. Now, that being said, they do have a little bit more favorable of a schedule, and it's just because of 2 teams they're playing. They get both teams that are sort of going to be rebuilding out of the Mountain West this year at home. We'll talk about them when we get there. Their first 2 games are not it. Going on the road to play San Diego State, I think that one's a loss. The Aztecs are making a switch at head coach. Brady Hoke is retired. They get Sean Lewis coming in, and even with that philosophy switch, a ton of talented transfers are coming in, and I love Sean Lewis as a head coach. I think SDSU is still going to be a really solid team this year, and they beat Hawaii there in week 6. Boise State, quite simply, is going to be one of the most, if not the most talented team in the Mountain West Conference this season. Ashton Genty is back. You get Malachi Nelson in as a 5-star, well, I believe he's a 4-star transfer, but a former 5-star freshman coming over from USC to play quarterback. Some really talented offensive and defensive weapons. And overall, guys, Boise State's just going to be a really, really talented team. So Hawaii suddenly falls down to 500, but you do have a road game coming up against Washington State that looks pretty manageable because, yes, the Cougars did lose a ton of pieces from last season, but I still project them to still be a pretty solid team, even though they don't necessarily have a home right now as the Pac-12, while still technically an entity, not really no conference championship or anything like that. But I think Washington State is going to be able to win this game here. Yes, they lost Cam Ward, some good wide receiver pieces, good defensive pieces. I get that, but there's still a lot of pieces there, and Jake Dickert is a good enough coach to help this Washington State team rebound from that collapse at the end of last season. I think they're going to be able to win that game, are the Cougars, meaning that the Rainbow Warriors fall below 500. Well, I think they get back above 500 when they beat the Nevada Wolfpack. Nevada is one of those teams that's going to be rebuilding this season, and Hawaii should be able to get that win there at home. Braden Shager and company will prove to be too much. But their next two games are going to be really, really tough to win. You got to go on the road and play the Fresno State Bulldogs, and I just don't see how you end up winning that game. If it would change the highlight in red, there it is. Again, I just don't really see how you're going to be able to win that one. Fresno State has got a ton of really, really talented pieces, and Mikey Keene is back, and Jeff Tedford is one of the best head coaches in the entire I was going to say the entire country, but at the very least, the Mountain West Conference, you can make the argument why he's the top 25 coach nationally and just a really talented team. They'll push for a Mountain West Conference title. They will be beating the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, as will, I think, the UNLV Rebels. Now, look, UNLV did lose some more pieces off of last year's team. Jade Maeva at quarterback is the notable one. You lose some other pretty solid pieces, but Matthew Saluka comes in. You get a lot of talented pieces, including Ricky White coming back. The defense loaded up on depth through the portal. And UNLV, they made the conference title last year. They'll contend for it this year. A win for the Rebels, and then a win for the Aggies of Utah State. Even though there's a lot of things going on with Blake Anderson and company right now, I still think the Aggies have enough talent to be competitive, and the Rainbow Warriors just can't seem to get any momentum going against Fresno State or UNLV. It's going to be tough to pick up momentum on the road against the Aggies, and although it could be a winnable game, I think a loss here takes them out of bowl game contention, but they're going to end with a fine 5-win season. Same result as last year when you beat New Mexico. Again, that sort of other team like Nevada in the Mountain West Conference that's trying to rebuild and trying to get their legs running in the right direction. So I got 5-7 for the Rainbow Warriors this year. 6-6, I think, is definitely achievable. I'd be pretty surprised if this team ended up going 7-5, although I do think that is the ceiling. 6-6 might be setting their ceiling a little bit low here, at least for me as a realism thing. But Braden Shager is going to have a good passing attack. If this offensive line can get better, the defensive pieces can gel. Hawaii can make it to a bowl game this season. Got him falling just short, though, here at 5-7 in the talented Mountain West. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. And we'll talk about the UTEP Miners in my next video. Goodbye.